Welcome one and all to the Friday edition of the Damage Report with me, John Adarola, and joining us in place of Brett Ehrlich at long last. He has been ousted at least for a month or so. Jessica Burbank, welcome to the program.
It's a coup. Goodbye, Brett.
It's a coup. You threaten a lot of coups. I'm getting a little, I like the joke, but I'm also like, I kind of get like a shiver up my spine every time you tell it. But anyway, we're glad to have you here. We know you're very busy. Thank you for giving us some of your time.
Of course. It's an empty threat, John.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. In hindsight, like 2 years from now, when you've finally taken over the show, someone's gonna like look back and find this and send it to me, and I'm gonna be too teary-eyed to make out the words. But anyway, we're glad to have you here, especially because we've got a lot to talk about on today's program. We're gonna be diving in just a minute into the big thing that the Biden administration's been working on this week, apparently. By the way, heads up to the director, we're gonna use that first video as a cold open. I don't have it marked as it, but we're gonna launch right into it. We're gonna be talking about that, as well as the fact that you should probably smoke the weed while you can, because the entire world might be on fire soon. Armageddon is coming, we're warned, and you're gonna want to be mentally prepared with some sort of drug. And then coming up after that, we've got some videos from the Arizona Senate debate that happened just last night. Blake Masters is in it. Were any good points made? Did he cut off anyone's face and wear it like a mask? We're gonna let you know in just a little bit. And then if you're watching the full show, we've got a lot of fun. Not only are we gonna be talking about incels, which is a weird form of fun, but I like it. Tucker Carlson and Kanye West. We're gonna see what's going on with that. And we will, in fact, be throwing away our garbage people of the week. And Jessica will be doing it once again. Not a first time anymore, she's a vet, but it's gonna be a lot of fun. And so in advance of that, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and sharing the stream, that'd be great. So the people know we're live. And if you wanna send us any comments, tweets, or super chats or anything like that, we'll respond as we go. But with all that said, Jessica, are you ready to start this show?
Let's get into it, John.
Let's get all the way into it, starting with this.
First, I'm announcing a pardon for all prior federal offenses for the simple possession of marijuana. There are thousands of people who are convicted for marijuana possession who may be denied employment, housing, or educational opportunities as a result of that conviction. My pardon will remove this burden on them. The federal government currently classifies marijuana as a Schedule I substance, the same as heroin and LSD, and more serious than fentanyl. It makes no sense. So I'm asking the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Attorney General to initiate a process to review how marijuana is scheduled under federal law.
So apparently Biden was listening when we've said over and over for the past couple of years, just like do something, man. Like you've wanted to be president your whole life, do something with the position, and he is. And look, honestly, the past couple of months, he's been far more active. I don't know what chemical substance they've been mixing into his Raisin brand, but he's fired up, and soon you'll be able to fire up without worrying about needlessly spending time in prison. So we're gonna take the couple of different things that he's doing in turn and then debate, is this great? Is this merely good? Is this potentially bad? We're gonna be diving into it, but first, the pardons will clear everyone convicted on federal charges of simple possession since it became a crime over 50 years ago. Officials said that full data was not available, but noted that about 6,500 people were convicted of simple possession between 1992 and 2021, not counting legal permanent residents. The pardons will also affect people who were convicted under the law of the District of Columbia. That would actually be thousands, so disproportionately larger considering the geographic area that it covers. Now that is the good side, but we're not here to do PR for Biden. Let's note that there are significant limitations to this. So first of all, the pardons will not apply to people convicted of selling or distributing marijuana, just the possession side. But the move will help remove obstacles for people trying to get a job, find housing, apply to college, or get federal benefits. So there's been a lot of, attempts by the right wing to undercut this change in a way that allows them to not state clearly that they never would have done it and they still want people to be locked up for smoking marijuana, saying, well, this is only going to affect a few people who are currently in prison, which is true. But the point of it, of course, is not to spring hundreds of thousands of people from federal prisons. It's to help the many thousands who are out there in the world and having difficulty securing employment and housing and things like that. And so there's stuff to balance there. And by the way, like this is, remember, He's the president. There's a federal system that we have. He is dealing with federal crimes here. And as Princeton University professor Uday Ofer acknowledged, simple possession of marijuana is a crime almost entirely prosecuted by the states, not by the federal government. And so there are way more people that in theory could benefit if this applied to them, but it does not because they were convicted at the state level. Now, Biden is encouraging governors to follow suit and to make this sort of change at the state level. The issue with that is the states that tend to have the most draconian anti-drug policies are also states where the Republican governors there have no interest in what Joe Biden wants. And so I don't expect them to care much about this change. But acknowledging that there are other limitations that we're gonna dive into. Jessica Burbank, what do you think? Were you shocked? I mean, there was no real warning that this was going to happen other than perhaps John Fetterman talking to Biden about decriminalization when he visited over around like Labor Day or whatever.
Yeah, Fetterman put some pressure on Biden here, which is super interesting. I think we've got Dank branded, no more dark branded. Now it's Dank Brandon. But here's the thing, Biden's administration has this weird habit of not launching policies or plans, but just like launching big ideas. Like, hey man, we're gonna pardon the people with marijuana. We're gonna look into it. I'm gonna ask them to look into expunging the records. That's all I have to say about it. It's always like, hey, we have this idea and we're looking into it and we're talking to the people about doing the thing. We don't have concrete plans, but this is the thing we wanna do. And then a few weeks later, it's like, actually, we're not gonna cancel all of that student loan debt. What's gonna happen in a few weeks? Is it gonna be like, well, we looked into it and we found out we actually can't change the schedule for marijuana. I'm sorry. So I'm not a big fan of that approach to governing. You're the president. You should come forth and say, we're giving these resources to overlook everybody's records, people who had multiple sentences, who got greater sentences for other crimes because this was on their record. There needs to be an elaborate plan to correct this. It can't just be like, hey man, I'm gonna pardon some people because Fetterman sent me a tweet. It's gotta be more than that.
I am now no longer going to be able to say Joe Biden without imagining him walking up and saying, hey man. So look, here is the fun thing we're gonna do now that we always do. It happens every day on the Young Turks. We're going to get attacked by literally everybody. So on the right, they're gonna hate that we're in support of this or whatever. And then we're also gonna criticize Joe Biden. So the people that love Joe Biden are gonna get mad at us too. So I want to acknowledge, first off, I didn't expect him to do this. Not only do I mean, like I didn't expect it to happen this week. If you had asked me Monday, will he do this as president? I would say, no, that's crazy. He's not gonna do it. He's been against marijuana his whole life. He is maybe not as bad as the reefer madness people on Fox News, but he has antiquated views about what marijuana is. Many older Americans do. They see this weed and they think things about it that make no sense to someone who consumes it on a regular basis, as well as other things. We eat an American diet, and I eat a particularly perverse version of the American diet. On any given day, marijuana is like the 10th worst thing I put in my body, and yet we're supposed to freak out about it as a nation. Maybe this will help to get rid of a little bit of that stigma, but let's talk a little bit more about where this could have gone that would have made it even better, acknowledging that I didn't expect it to happen. So obviously it's limited to the federal government. There's not much that he could do there. He can put pressure on the states. That's good. Maybe there will be some Democratic governors that will follow suit. That would be nice. Also, it very specifically, like textually, explicitly cuts out migrants, undocumented migrants, non-citizens of all sorts. It very specifically says this does not affect them. And there are many migrants right now in civil detention for marijuana related crimes. It's like jaywalking. It's a thing they can use to get you in lieu of finding something worse. And so he could have not done that very easily. I literally mean he could have not typed those words, and that would have been awesome. They didn't do it. Also, and there's no way he would do this, but we already acknowledged that it applies to people who possess the marijuana, not people who trafficked the marijuana or whatever. And I think that's dumb. Now look, if you sold marijuana and murdered people, sure, you should probably be in jail. But if all you did was sell it, and we agree as a nation that it never should have been illegal to do that in the first place, then why is it still illegal that you did it? It was an unjust policy. It was law, but it wasn't justice. The point of this sort of move is to get closer to justice. And they're only maybe Biden thinks of them as evil criminals, whatever, I don't know. Or maybe he's just terrified that if he were to expunge the records of those who sold marijuana as well, then Sean Hannity would literally never stop talking about it. I don't know. But if your goal is justice, then they should expunge those records too. And that would not only help a lot more people with employment and housing, all those things we're talking about, but it would also result in a lot more people ending needless, unjust prison sentences. So that would be the main thing that I would have changed, Jessica. But of course, he's not gonna do that.
Yeah, of course not. And the goal is not justice. It's as clear as day. Your logic is sound. If the goal was justice, this would be a much more elaborate plan. It would not make it illegal, and the people would be pardoned as well who are selling marijuana for the reasons you just said. The goal is not justice. The goal is to score some political points. Listen, if this was a free country, you'd be allowed to free your mind. You'd be allowed to smoke a little bit of weed, but it's not. We know that. And we know that marijuana crimes have been used to disproportionately put black and brown people in jail. When I was in high school, I sold, a little bit of weed. I'm not gonna lie. I never got in trouble for it. I never got in trouble for it. It's how I paid for my SATs because they were like very rich white kids in my high school, and I knew them through classes I took, and I sold them weed, and that's how I ended up paying for my SAT class. It's a true story. Is it a crime? Should it have been a crime? It was a crime. It should not have been. And it's ridiculous now that we have Biden scoring political points with liberals who are like, yeah, this is great, good job, Biden. And if we make this criticism, which we are right now on the show, which is to say he should have done far more, this should not have been exclusive to people who are undocumented, and it should have gone further. There will be people that are saying, well, it's very complicated. It's really not. It's really not at all complicated to do this. And it's also not complicated for Biden to change the scheduling of marijuana. Like, you're the president of the United States. It doesn't have to be, well, I'm gonna talk to them about it and figure it out. Figure it out before you announce the plan. It's really not as complicated as these people would make it out to be. And it's crazy that Fox News is gonna be pushing some reefer madness pretty soon. And I am looking forward to it, because at this point, it's just funny.
Yeah, I mean, look, the front page of Fox News already had the reefer madness. I'm sure they had it ready to go just in case. There's a lot. As a viewer, I'm sure you frequently run up against like, wait, why is this the way things are? This seems crazy, but is anything more that thing than that people freak out about someone else 1,000 miles away that they'll never meet smoking marijuana? I mean, that is just madness. We live in an insane world. We live in a particularly crazy province of an insane world that we care about that, and that we are willing to ruin people's lives over that. That is truly crazy. And this brings us one step closer. We've been gradually taking steps as a nation. About 20 states have legalized marijuana. I'm lucky enough to live in a state where it's fully legal. And we were told for years, just as with gay marriage, that were it to be legalized, that's it, the zombies are coming. But it doesn't really seem to be doing anything bad. Like, I literally can go and buy a pound of weed. Well, that's probably too expensive. I can buy some amount of weed and get high later. And so what? Honestly, like, what difference does it make? And it ain't like it being illegal in these other states is stopping people from smoking it anyway. In every single possible way, it's the dumbest thing to continue. You should reschedule it immediately and let the Republicans cry about it. Let them broadcast to every person, especially every young person, how out of touch they are with reality. Let them do that, let them whine, let them do a court case about it or something. You be the person, Joe Biden, to stand up for the American people. You're sort of doing it now. You've started to get out of your chair. You're making the old man noise. Just fully stand up for the American people for once.
Yeah, that's the main thing we should be talking about, is that nobody is hurting people because they smoked some weed. Like, it is not a dangerous drug. People get in drunk driving accidents far more frequently than I've ever heard of anybody hurting someone because they made an accident because they were high. And that's really what we should center this around, is if you're not hurting anyone, should the government be able to step in and say, you should or should not be doing this? That's really what we should be talking about, because there are real consequences to this being criminalized. So like, if I have 2 simple possession charges, I've bailed my friends out of jail for simple possession charges. Now, if they get pulled over for speeding, if they get pulled over for speeding like 20 miles over the speed limit, they could get arrested, and they have prior charges now, and they could end up going to jail for something as frivolous as that. Because in many states, there are strike laws where if you have prior charges against you, guess what? Now you can get more prison time for super small charges like jumping the turnstiles in the subway system. It is crazy how our justice system works. And charges for weed have really no place in a system if justice is the purpose.
I agree. I don't consume as much as some people, but I've done it many times. And the worst thing that ever happened to me was, I think one time I got really high, laid down on a couch, and I put on the Between Two Ferns movie, and I kind of thought that I was going to laugh myself to death. I survived. My abs hurt the next day. That's about the worst thing, and that was legal maybe at the time, I think. Whereas when I was a little bit younger, I once made a lasagna out of many hamburgers with layers of bacon, and that was legal. You can't lock me up for that for some reason. We don't live in a just society. Anyway, with that said, why don't we turn to something slightly different? Joe Biden giveth the good news and then he taketh away. Let's turn to that now. Joe Biden was at a fundraiser on Thursday and he raised the prospect of nuclear Armageddon. He said the prospect of Armageddon is higher than it's been since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. He says that Vladimir Putin is not joking when he talks about potential use of tactical nuclear weapons or biological or chemical weapons, because his military is, you might say, significantly underperforming. Laser eyes. Anyway, I love a little bit of Dark Brandon when he mocks the inability of an imperial power to conquer a sovereign state. Anyway, he goes on to say, we've not faced this prospect since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. We have a direct threat of the use of nuclear weapons if in fact things continue down the path they are going. I'm trying to figure out, what is Putin's off-ramp? Where does he find a way out? Where does he find himself in a position that he does not only lose face, but lose significant power within Russia? And acknowledging, as I always do, that I am not an expert on international relations. It was one of my focuses in grad school, but I didn't get the PhD, so you don't have to listen to me. I did a little bit of research and I have actually identified the off-ramp. It is the entire eastern border of Ukraine. You went across it that way, now just go across it that way and you are off the ramp there, no more issues. Jessica, what do you think? Are you worried about tactical nukes being used?
I think it's very interesting. We're at a point where, think about the Cuban Missile Crisis. This was on the news every day. Everybody was talking about it while it was going on. In the White House, it was lived 24/7. But today in America, if what Joe Biden is saying is true, and we are on the brink of nuclear war in this world, everyone's just like, yeah, oh well. Just another day in America. Like, life is so bad for everyday people that they're like, well, if it happens, it happens. What does that say about how Joe Biden's doing as a president in the state of our country? I think it says a lot that people are not particularly disturbed at the prospect of nuclear Armageddon. But the thing is like the United States has also been an aggressor in the situation of Ukraine and Russia. And for Biden to say, oh, well, now Putin might use nukes, it's like you had years to negotiate with Ukraine. And like Donald Trump did not do a great job. So Biden, maybe it's months for Biden, but they had ample time to solve this diplomatically before it got to the point we're at now, where we're spending billions on this war in Ukraine and not doing much to de-escalate ourselves. We're not really supporting these peace talks. We haven't taken a position where it's like, yes, we acknowledge there is a presence of growing fascism and Nazism in Ukraine. Let's talk with an international body about how to resolve that. The United States isn't doing a great job proposing solutions either. That being said, for Putin to react with nuclear arms usage because he is losing a war that is being fought for imperial reasons because he wants to annex Ukraine is also insane. Everybody's crazy, and it's crazy that these guys are representing people who really don't support any of this. Like, I guarantee you, most people in Russia, most people in the United States have no skin in the game. People in Ukraine are very unhappy about what's happening, but let's be real. The people that these leaders represent, who are being super unhinged with how they're using weapons that could cause mass destruction, it's insane. Like, these are supposed to be democratic countries, but our democracy hardly ever extends to foreign policy. We just trust these guys to just make decisions on our behalf that have huge consequences.
Yeah, look, I'm not in Russia. Maybe the case being made domestically is effective. Maybe people are fired up about this. That hasn't seemed to be the impression I've gotten, but of course the news that I get out of Russia is of course incredibly filtered. It seems like generally imperial powers do a better job of creating a pretext for this sort of thing. Like, I lived, my political awakening was in the run up to the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. And I know how much pressure the media was putting on people to bow down and support the war. This just seems so tangent. That's why I joke about like literally just leave the country. Like I know that it's not as simple as that, but it feels like it should be. There's nothing to be gained there. Like just freaking go. Just go and stop having tens of thousands of your people needlessly die, even before you start launching weapons of mass destruction. It is absolute madness. And look, bearing in mind that I didn't think that the invasion would happen, or if it was gonna happen, that it wouldn't have happened when it did. One of the reasons I think a lot of people aren't as worried about nuclear weapons being used, one of the reasons why I'm maybe naively not that worried about it, is because it just does seem too crazy. It seems like I know that Russia wants to pretend that they don't need literally any allies or whatever. I kind of feel like that's crossing a line that would be damaging for Putin at that point. So I don't know, maybe I could be proven wrong. Maybe you all out there are gonna watch the damage reports someday as the nuclear fallout drops. In that case, you could probably skip the show, spend some time with your family. But I don't see it happening. I hope that I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think we can nerd out on the international relations stuff for a second, both acknowledging neither of us have graduate degrees specifically in this, but it is interesting to think about, and everyone has a right to, think about the prospect of how they can be governed in an international way. Because right now we have an anarchic setup of states. There is no international government in the world. The United Nations is fully controlled by whatever country has the most power, i.e. the strongest military. That's the world we live in. It's like the Wild West. As soon as you're in, international, waters or air, there's no governance there. The way we put representatives into the United Nations and other international governing bodies, which as we just covered are not people that are actually democratically representing people. It's just like, hey, this guy did some political favors for me during my electoral campaign, so I'm gonna make him an ambassador. That's usually how this type of thing goes, and it's someone who's made a career out of being a statesman in positions they were never elected to serve in. An alternative for that could be is if we elected our representatives to go represent us in international bodies. Crazy idea, but actually it makes a lot of sense the more you think about it.
You're saying like literally have like a presidential election across the nation to choose our rep at the UN?
Yeah, I think every country should have elected representatives on a global level because we have so many problems that require global cooperation to solve, like climate change.
Yeah. That makes so much sense, and I immediately start to worry, who the hell would end up getting elected? Oh geez, I do like that though. That's a good idea. I've never heard that proposed. Maybe we should make that happen. Okay, popular vote. Yeah, thank God for the first time. I think we're probably gonna have to take our first break. I thought maybe we'd get a chance to debate this, but we're gonna take a break. We come back, we got a lot more to get to, so don't go anywhere. Okay, everybody, before we delve into the insanity, which we will, let's touch base with a few of the ongoing scandals, starting with this. A top official at the Department of Justice apparently reached out to the Trump legal team over the past few weeks. We're now learning to tell them that it is their belief, the belief of the DOJ, that he still has more documents that he hasn't turned over. Now, we had reason to believe this, and we'll go back through some of that evidence, but this is the biggest indication yet that is the position of the actual DOJ. They are skeptical that Mr. Trump has been fully cooperative in their efforts to recover documents. That's a bold position to take, that he hasn't been fully cooperative, but that's where they've gotten. Now, shortly after the search of Mar-a-Lago back in August, it was revealed that federal investigators had found dozens of empty folders at Mar-a-Lago marked as containing classified information. Of course, they're empty. Where are the documents? We don't know. The empty folders were found during the search of Mar-a-Lago, along with 40 other empty folders that they said contained sensitive documents that should be returned to staff secretary / military aid, according to a court filing. And importantly, this now provides an answer to a question that we were forced to ask after the empty folder story initially broke, because although we will never and have never gotten credit for being fair, we were trying to be fair. And we said that while the empty folders could be an indication that documents were taken out of it and are hidden somewhere, it could also be the case that documents were in there, but they were taken out and they've already been recovered, that the other documents they found had been in the folders. This is evidence from the DOJ that that is not the case. They know what's supposed to be there, and they're implying that what is supposed to be in those folders was not recovered. So we're gonna be fair again. That doesn't necessarily mean that Trump took it and moved it to Bedminster or buried it with Ivana. He could have hidden it in the White House and never stolen it at all or something. If he'd just taken the folders and left the documents, then they'd have the documents. There'd be no reason for the DOJ to reach out. And so it's not looking good in terms of that. And if you want to establish sort of an idea of the state of mind of Trump, his motivations, his unwillingness to work with this investigation, and indeed his efforts to obstruct it, like the third or fourth time you keep documents following searches and raids, that doesn't look great for your side, I wouldn't think. But Jessica, what do you think?
Yeah, pretty sure empty folder, documents aren't in that folder, not in the other folders. The guy that took the folder with the documents in it, he's probably the guy that's got those. But to give him the benefit of the doubt, he might not even know he has them. I could imagine a world where Donald Trump has these classified documents in between like paper takeout menus in his house, and he just doesn't know that they're there. He really seems like the kind of guy that uses the paper takeout menus and not the like Grubhub ordering on his phone. And he reads off of the menu and tells other people what he would like to order, and then he hands the menus back, and then classified documents go along with them. Nobody knows where they are. Seems like something that could happen. Nevertheless, why did it take them so long to come to this conclusion? They had so much time to look through the documents, make this determination. Also, if he took the folders with the documents, he could have taken a picture of them. He could have made a copy of them with the printer. Like, he's guilty regardless of if you recover this one copy of the classified document. Like, do they not know this technology exists?
100%. Well, I think something like that could have happened. He could have had someone copy that. I have no doubt that there's no way he could operate a printer. And maybe he took a picture. He does like using his phone, but I guarantee that before he successfully got a photo of the documents, he took wide-eyed selfies by accident many, many times. Yeah, no, he probably has I mean, that's like, we're supposed to pretend that it's something else. He took the documents because he wants to take the documents. He definitely took the documents. It is still, they say, unclear what the DOJ might do. And I woke up to this really weird thing that there was different versions of this like throughout the Trump administration, where like you have some people like Lawrence Tribe that are like, oh my God, this indicates the indictments are coming. And then a bunch of other people are like, well, we looked at the actual people in the DOJ that are working on this, and they're not exactly known for being like the most bold investigators. And Merrick Garland really hasn't given any signs for the past 2 weeks that he's gonna do anything about it. And so I feel like we're in sort of the same situation. The facts remain largely the same. He definitely did it. He knew what he was doing. He didn't declassify them. It was illegal. And there's no guarantee that anything bad is gonna happen to him as a result of it. So it should, maybe it will. And if not, there's still Fulton County that could produce something. But anyway, yeah, no guarantee, Jessica, that anything is gonna happen to him.
Yeah, very interesting that Biden is warning us that we're nearing nuclear Armageddon. We know these classified documents contained secrets potentially related to where our nukes are, nuclear codes, things related to our national security. We also know that foreign nationals frequent Mar-a-Lago where Donald Trump lives. The fact that people in the DOJ are not taking this as seriously as it is concerning for everybody, because regardless of if America's warranted the enemies they've created in the world based on how they've acted, the people that live in the United States that will face the consequences if Donald Trump gives this information, sells it to someone, or just shares it with his buddies because he hates Joe Biden, there are real consequences to that people will face. And so inaction on behalf of the DOJ right now has huge consequences. It is criminal. So the fact that Merrick Garland's kind of sitting on his hands, like, we shouldn't be hoping that some Fulton County prosecutor gets Donald Trump when he's committing crimes of this scale.
Yeah, we would be unwise to put all of our faith in that DA. Instead, we should put it all in Raymond Dearie, the special master. Surely he'll save us. Anyway, we'll see. Stay tuned. He'll eventually have his conclusion. And by the way, next week there are more of the January 6 hearings, probably the last of the January 6 hearings scheduled to happen. And so I'm sure we'll be doing live coverage, and who knows what they'll show. Anyway, with that said, I think that we should probably jump ahead to the second part of this block. Whenever you're ready, we can launch directly into this video.
I remember a very famous pollster, very well-known, John McLaughlin, came to my office just prior to the plague coming in. He said, "Sir, if George Washington and Abraham Lincoln came alive from the dead and they formed a president, vice president team, you would beat them by 40%. That's how good our numbers were."
You lost though. Like, okay. I mean, we were up by a lot before we lost in the end of the fourth quarter. I mean, yeah, like I was up at the casino by thousands of dollars before I lost my house. Okay, if that makes you feel better, which apparently it does, since Trump is bringing it up like a year and a half after he lost the election. But it's a weird hypothetical, isn't it? That George Washington and Abraham Lincoln would come back and team up when both seem like pretty big personalities. Do they agree that much on policy? It's this weird ahistorical take. You know, history isn't like one point in time. They come from very different eras, probably have very different positions on certain important issues, like slavery, for instance. Weird that he wouldn't think of that. But of course, many people's response to this bizarre Trump quote was to point out that if in theory we accept what that pollster said and you would beat this ticket by 40 points, that means that Biden would have beaten it by 42, I guess? I don't know, Jessica, what do you think? I know you're a student of history.
Yeah, when Donald Trump gives these speeches, it reminds me of when you're asked to give a child a bedtime story and you're just making stuff up as you go. He's like, Abraham Lincoln. It's like the pausing is really interesting. Like, how does he come up with the words before he says them? I really don't understand. But it's precisely that. It's all fiction. He's regurgitating some half-baked version of a poll that he saw. He clearly doesn't understand statistics, because you're absolutely right. If it was a 40-point difference and Biden was ahead by 2, Biden would have 42. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But I do quite enjoy that we still get these ramblings from Donald Trump, but it is scary that people are listening to this and will make decisions when they go and cast ballots in our country based off of what he's saying. Yeah. So it's fun to make fun of and watch, but very scary actually.
Yeah, that's the subtitle of this period of American politics. Fun to watch, but kind of deeply worrying. Yeah, and honestly, like, he's an idiot and all that. That's true, but he's probably right. I mean, I'm not even saying that like Washington or Lincoln were great. They were white men who lived hundreds of years ago. Do you have any idea what a conversation with them would have been like? Think about it for a second. But I don't know. Like, I don't think Reagan could beat Trump at this point. Like the world has devolved so much. We're not going to play the video, but there are like Trump supporters running around saying that the election was stolen by Mark Zuckerberg. Like, we are crazy people. Like, yeah, I bet some of the politicians from a couple hundred years ago would have a difficult time making it work today.
Yeah.
Anyway,
like, what? There's a Catholic in office?
Exactly.
Like, women can vote? Like, yeah.
What's a germ?
Yeah.
They were primitive people, honestly. Okay, with that said, I think that we should probably take our second break, because we're about to launch into this Arizona Senate debate coverage, and there's a lot there. So everyone prep yourself as we take this little break. Okay, we're gonna see how much we can fit into the next 18 minutes or so. Let's jump directly into this.
Have you always supported the 15-week limit?
Well, Arizona just passed the law last year, and Senator Graham just introduced the bill last month.
Right, but my question is, have you always supported that kind of?
I couldn't support a bill 9 months ago if it was just introduced last month.
It's not the bill, it's the limit. Have you always supported that limit? That kind of limit?
I believe Arizona's got the right to make its laws. That's the whole point of reversing Roe versus Wade. And I believe in a federal backstop. I think at the federal level, we should not be allowing late-term partial birth abortion all the way up until the moment of birth, and except for to save the life of the mother.
So if you've watched Blake Masters' videos, you've come away with a couple of obvious conclusions. One, he definitely considers himself to be a tough guy. And two, he probably has some form of cage in his basement. I don't know if it's human-sized or animal-sized, but some mammal is being kept against its will in his basement, allegedly. But to the tough guy thing, here's an idea, Blake Masters. Just say what you believe, tough guy. Well, I think that Arizona has the right to make a law. Yeah, literally everybody believes that, and any politician can say that. What do you believe, buddy? You want to get elected and you want to have the ability to vote on legislation. So I'm not interested in whether you could have 9 months ago or whether states should be able to, whatever. What do you think should happen? This is one of the main issues people are going to be deciding on, which is, of course, why he doesn't want to say. He believes insane things about the control he as a man should have over women's bodies. Let's just be very clear about that. That is why he's running for the hills when a direct question is put to him, because he knows how unpopular his barbaric beliefs actually are. So he's not going to say what he believes, but trust me, that's what he believes. And he'll shroud it, of course, with this BS about late-term abortion and partial birth abortion, and a whole bunch of mythological stuff that has no bearing on the real world. 16 weeks ain't late-term abortion. I think we can all agree on that. And we've got more, including the response of Mark Kelly to what you just saw. But Jessica, what do you think?
This is why we can't have debates in America anymore. His response to "do you believe in X thing" was whatever you guys in the party wants, really. The people are trying to decide who to vote for. You need to tell them what your values and beliefs are so they can decide whether or not to cast the ballot for you. That's how democracy works. And this is where we're at, because these people have no values at all.
100%. Okay, let's give Mark Kelly a chance to respond. We're gonna jump into that.
Arizona women have totally lost the right to make a decision about abortion. It's devastating. It's wrong. And it's exactly what my opponent, Blake Masters, wants. Blake Masters has called abortion demonic, religious sacrifice. He's even said that he wants to punish the doctors. He wants a national abortion ban that's so strict that even in the case when a woman is raped, she will not have the option to make this decision. Now, in a second, he's going to tell you that this isn't true. But folks, this is true. These are his words. He has supported state and national abortion bans that will deny the right for a woman to make this decision by themselves. And that's what it's about for Blake. I mean, he's only saying this now, and he's probably going to tell you something totally different. And it's only because he's trying to win an election.
100%. That is why he's dodging the question. So let's be very clear about that. Let's be very clear, by the way. Whatever ban they put up at the federal level, he's going to support. If it's 15 weeks, he'll do 15 weeks. If it's 10, he'll do 10. If it's 2, he'll do 2. I'm not saying that he doesn't have real beliefs about abortion. He looks exactly like the sort of guy that believes the control of other people's bodies should be up to him. But that's not why he's running. He's running because Peter Thiel chose him, put a bunch of money into it, and he's going to try to deregulate those industries while keeping corporate taxes and taxes on the 1% as low as possible. Like, that's why he's actually going. The cultural stuff can be a nice distraction, and so he'll give the right-wing base whatever it is that they want to keep them placated, while he and the class he is sent to DC to serve get away with economic murder. And so, yeah, if he gets elected, he has a vote for literally whatever ban comes up before them. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know how insane they'll go at the federal level, Jessica, but he will support it.
Yeah, Mark Kelly gave a good response there, but I think what we have to do with these conservatives who spin words, and he says it should be up to the Arizona people, what the ban is and the laws that are introduced. It should be up to them. If it should be up to the Arizona people, let each person in Arizona decide for themselves whether or not they should have an abortion. That is precisely what Mark Kelly should have said. It's right to say that actually Blake Masters supports an abortion ban because that has very real consequences. But if we want to talk about politics from the framework of ideas and right and wrong and whether or not people should be allowed to decide, let the people actually make that decision with their doctors. It's very simple.
Yeah, that is the status quo we had for literally decades. That's the status quo that they upset, pretending that they care about life. Oh, Blake Masters, if you think doctors should be sent to jail for helping assist with an abortion, do you think Herschel Walker should be in jail? I mean, after all, he hired a hitman to commit murder when it came to that abortion. Should he be in jail? I have a feeling he probably wouldn't support that. Now that said, we need to move on to other news. So we're gonna jump ahead to the D block. Regrettably, we can't quite get to this other Blake Masters thing. It would have been so good, but we don't have much time. So why don't we jump into that? This week we found out that Elon Musk, after spending literally months pretending to care about bots, is once again ready to pay what he said he would pay for Twitter. Basically, genius Einstein business stuff. In any event, there are new updates, including as of just yesterday. A judge has said that the trial, which was set to begin very soon between Twitter and Elon Musk, is on hold for a short period to give a little bit more time for their deal to potentially close. Sources say that Musk and Twitter are negotiating a potential resolution to their dispute. But I do like that Twitter held to starting that trial. They did not back off earlier this week as Elon Musk wanted them to when he said he would pay them, because there was no assurance that he actually would. And he's already demonstrated multiple times throughout this year that you cannot trust him to do the things that he says that he will. And so good move there by Twitter. And during that time, by the way, there's been some interesting developments that imply that Elon Musk might not be ready to actually close this deal, at least as it had previously been constituted. Some potential funders of the deal that are supposed to be funding his portion of the money are backing away. Multiple different Apollo Global Management and 6th Street. They were, I think just 6th Street alone were supposed to be contributing $1 billion towards it. Other funders are backing away as well. And remember, the fact that he made this deal and then seemed to have a bunch of trouble financing, it caused a lot of trouble, not only for him, but also for the stock price of Tesla. And while at this point, he's sold about $32 billion of stock in Tesla to free up cash for this deal, he still owes a significant portion towards that. And there's no guarantee at this point that he's going to have it. So I don't know exactly what's gonna happen. I've looked to his Twitter account to see how serious he might be about this deal. And while he didn't talk about it directly, I do think I came away with an idea of how serious he is, because his tweets recently have been things like, war is the ultimate Supreme Court. Okay, Cybertruck will be waterproof enough to serve as a boat, crossing rivers, lakes, and even seas. Or when he tried to, via tweet, negotiate a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. I think he's probably serious. I don't think they need the lawsuit. I think that they can just take his deal to the bank. Jessica, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a very serious man who has always made good on all of his promises and has always made very straightforward deals when doing business. No, the one interesting thing is he can't use his platform now, again, to inflate the price of Dogecoin so that he actually has the money to back up this deal, because he's facing a $258 billion lawsuit for running Dogecoin like a pyramid scheme to make money, which is exactly what he does with Tesla stock, which is to use his public platform to try and inflate the price. Is he actually close to making those robots that he unveiled this week? Is he actually close to getting these trucks to the market? Or is he doing another PR campaign to increase the price of Tesla stocks so he has the money to back up the deal he promised when he doesn't actually have the money to back up that deal? It's more of the same. It's his typical con game.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think that that's a great read. Putting it out there to seem as if they're working on something when other companies have been working on robots like that for years are like, yeah, you made the thing that Sony made like 10 years ago. Great, that's awesome. Is the robot gonna come out? Is the Cybertruck gonna come out? Is he going to finally get the bargain that he wanted, an erotic massage in return for a horse? You remember that story? Isn't it weird that everyone has moved on from that story? That he offered a flight attendant a horse for an erotic massage? We will just normalize anything as a society.
We feel this is not getting enough attention.
No, we remember. Anyway, here's what I would like to see. I'd like to never see his face again. I would like to have him back off this deal or finalize it, ruin Twitter so I don't have to be on it anymore. Either one of those is perfectly fine for me. I'd also like to see him, like, honestly, from the point of view of Tesla, you gotta cut the cord with this guy. Tesla could be a great company as long as they're not being weighted down by this moronic anchor constantly. And I will remind you all, he's not making the cars. He's not on the line like Tony Stark, tightening bolts and stuff. He doesn't design the cars. He doesn't make the cars. He's a distraction, a figurehead. And he did a lot of damage to their stock price earlier, during a time when a lot of other companies are coming out with electric cars, and Tesla could really use a little bit of a boost. Anyway, we're gonna see what happens with the court case. It'll be continuing closer to the end of this month. Why don't we talk about one more topic with what remains of this hour? Caitlin Preble was shocked to find out that her young daughter's medication was going to be denied to her because of the anti-abortion wave that's passing through this country. Now, the daughter was not looking to have an abortion. Her condition has nothing to do with that, and yet it's been caught up with this anti-abortion fervor, and she's speaking out. I want to give you a little bit of what she had to say in this clip.
I was in there very upset. I was shaking, I was crying. I was really mad. Without this medication, she would pretty much be suffering. She suffers with a hard time getting around. It affects her when it comes to school, when it comes to writing, typing, walking, doing activities. Talked to the pharmacist, and the pharmacist said, I denied it because she's 14 years old.
Okay. So a 14-year-old girl who is suffering from chronic pain caused by this arthritis, because the medication that she needs can, in theory, be used to have an abortion, she's denied. And a pharmacist apparently doesn't have a problem with that. Either doesn't know or doesn't care that it has other uses. And I mean, look, this is the state that we're in. As of right now, by the way, that's the state of this. She doesn't know if she's gonna be able to get this medication in the future because she regrettably lives in a barbaric nation that doesn't care about whether people live, die, or suffer because of the political decisions of other people. And so my heart goes out to Caitlin as well as her daughter as they continue to struggle against this, and hopefully will be able to get the medication that she needs. Jessica, what do you think?
Imagine having to move states because you can't get your arthritis medication where you currently live and you're struggling to move around because this state has an abortion ban and the medication could be used for an abortion. Like post-Roe America is 1000% about controlling women and controlling reproduction, because think about Sudafed or NyQuil. You have to show your ID when you buy it and prove you're 18 because those drugs can be used for other things than to cure the sniffles. But we don't ban people from taking those drugs. The extent of control that they're trying to exercise over women in this world is disgusting. She has arthritis. There are also women who are trying to receive care for other conditions that can't. There are women who are trying to get hysterectomies and they're being denied that medical coverage because they could want to get pregnant someday. And the state and the people in power would rather keep them fertile. That's a reason to deny someone medical care in a free country. It's not a free country.
Yeah, 100%. And look, when you have your laws being crafted in this incredibly unjust, inhumane way, it is going to throw up barbaric consequences like this. Not only this is terrible, but women who've had miscarriages being investigated by the police, potentially spending time in jail. And by the way, all of this is where we're at right now in the immediate aftermath of Roe v. Wade being destroyed. We're just getting started with what some of these Republican states are gonna do, the legislation they're gonna pass. As we said at the time, they are not going to suddenly be satiated. They've been salivating for more than half a century at destroying these rights. That has been the motivating force behind like at least a third of their base. You think they're just gonna like, oh yeah, no, I guess those people don't care about politics anymore and they're just gonna sit casually by? No, they are going to keep those people fired up by chipping away more and more and more rights. And you're gonna see more injustice like this. And my final point, while we should identify these sorts of things and stop them from happening, because they are unjust, bear in mind, it's not as if this thing wasn't happening. If she was able to get her medication, then we're good. The simple denial of access to control what happens to your body should be more than enough to motivate all of us to throw these people out of office. Just on top of that, you get horrendous, horrible outcomes like this. Now, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for the first hour of the Damage Report. Thank you, everyone watching on the linear platforms or listening on the podcast. We always appreciate that. For those of you on other platforms, though, we've got a lot more news to get to. After just a couple minute break, we will be throwing away our garbage people of the week, so don't go anywhere. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.